When people talk about billionaire success stories, Mark Cuban is always near the top of the list. He went from sleeping on the floor, hustling as a software salesman, to becoming a self-made billionaire, investor, and one of the most outspoken personalities on television. But what makes him unique is not just the money he made. It is the advice he gives to young people, especially those in their 20s, about building wealth. Unlike many entrepreneurs who give vague motivational slogans, Mark Cuban is blunt, practical, and direct. But the question is, does his advice actually work in real life, or is it only useful if you already have millions to play with? To find the answer, we need to dig deep into his core principles, his money rules, and how someone in their 20s can realistically apply them. And as you listen, think carefully. If you took his words seriously right now, how different could your financial life look in 5 years? The first piece of advice Cuban gives is surprisingly simple: live like you are broke. When most people graduate college or land their first job, the temptation is to spend. A better apartment, a nice car, dinners out with friends, the latest tech. All of these feel like rewards for surviving school or finally earning a paycheck. But Cuban insists that overspending early is the biggest financial trap of your 20s. He says that the less you spend, the greater your options are in the future. Every dollar you avoid wasting today is a dollar that can work for you tomorrow. Think about it this way: most people in their 20s will gladly spend $200 on a new pair of sneakers or $100 on a night out, but they will hesitate to invest that same money into a stock, a course, or a side hustle. Cuban is not saying you should never enjoy life, but he is clear that discipline is freedom. If you live cheaply now, you have the flexibility to take risks later, risks that can lead to real wealth. The second key lesson from Cuban is to kill debt before it kills you. He is extremely vocal about this. He calls credit card debt the worst investment you can make because the interest rates are higher than almost any return you will find elsewhere. He says that if you carry a balance on your credit card, you are effectively going backward financially, no matter how much you earn. Imagine you are paying 18% interest while your investments are earning 7%. Mathematically, you are sinking even while you think you are swimming. So Cuban advises young people to aggressively eliminate all high-interest debt. This means credit cards, payday loans, and even unnecessary car payments. By doing this, you are not just reducing stress, you are freeing up money that can be redirected toward actual wealth building. Once debt is under control, Cuban moves to his third principle: save aggressively and build a cushion. He emphasizes having at least 6 months of expenses in the bank. Why? Because security is opportunity. If you have cash reserves, you are not forced to cling to a bad job out of fear. You can walk away, try something new, or seize a chance that others cannot because they are living paycheck to paycheck. He argues that the number one mistake young people make is not saving enough because they believe more money will always come later. But the truth is, opportunities only open when you already have the freedom to say yes to them. Now here is where his advice gets even more practical. Cuban recommends investing in what he calls yourself before anything else. He says the best investment you can make in your 20s is to learn new skills, take courses, read books, and find mentors. If you increase your skills, you increase your earning potential for the rest of your life. Unlike stocks or real estate, no one can ever take your knowledge from you. This is where his philosophy becomes very different from many finance gurus who only talk about passive income or buying assets. Cuban insists that in your 20s, you should be focusing on making yourself so valuable that companies or clients cannot ignore you. Instead of worrying about owning property right away, you should be building a toolkit of abilities that will pay you for decades. But does it actually work? Let us consider Cuban himself. In his 20s, he was fired from multiple jobs because he refused to settle for mediocrity. Instead, he learned programming, software sales, and entrepreneurship, each skill stacked on top of the other until he was able to create his first company, MicroSolutions, which he eventually sold for millions. His early financial discipline, living cheap, avoiding debt, and reinvesting in skills set the stage for the wealth he built later. Another key lesson from Cuban is about opportunity. He says that being rich is not just about working harder than everyone else. It is about recognizing when a once-in-a-lifetime chance is in front of you and being prepared to jump. He tells the story of how he and his partner started Broadcast.com, the company that eventually made him a billionaire. They saw the internet boom before most people did, and because Cuban had cash reserves, skills, and the willingness to take risks, he was able to move quickly. He insists that preparation meets luck, and that is what people call success. But here is an interesting point that many overlook. Cuban does not glamorize entrepreneurship for everyone. In fact, he warns young people not to start companies just for the sake of starting them. He says that if you are going to be an entrepreneur, you must be obsessed with solving a real problem and willing to sacrifice almost everything to make it work. For most people, he suggests that building wealth through smart saving, debt management, and skill building is actually the better path. At this point, let me ask you something. If you are in your 20s right now, are you honestly applying even half of these rules? Are you living below your means, destroying debt, building savings, and learning relentlessly? Or are you drifting along hoping wealth magically shows up later? Sometimes, hearing Cuban's advice is uncomfortable because it forces us to look in the mirror and admit we are not as disciplined as we should be. Another controversial stance Cuban takes is his view on the stock market. While many gurus tell young people to dive into complex investing strategies, Cuban is more cautious. He says that if you do not understand the stock market, you should not gamble in it. Instead, he suggests putting money into index funds or even just keeping cash until a real opportunity appears. His point is simple: losing money on investments you barely understand sets you back years, while patience and discipline can move you forward. This connects to his philosophy about time. Cuban believes that in your 20s, time is your biggest advantage. You can afford to take risks because you have decades to recover from mistakes. But he balances this by saying you should only risk what you can afford to lose. Too many young people confuse risk with recklessness, and that is why they end up broke instead of wealthy. So does Mark Cuban's advice actually work? To answer that, let us break it down into outcomes. If you follow his method of living below your means, you will absolutely build a financial cushion. That is simple math. If you eliminate debt, you free yourself from high-interest traps that keep millions of people poor. That too is undeniable. If you invest in yourself, you increase your earning potential over time. Again, proven. And if you stay alert to opportunities, you put yourself in the position to capitalize when the right door opens. The pieces clearly add up. The challenge, of course, is execution. Most people in their 20s do not want to hear about discipline and sacrifice. They want fast money and instant results. Cuban's advice is not glamorous. It is about patience, consistency, and grinding when no one is watching. But if you actually apply it, the results are powerful. Imagine two 22-year-olds graduate college with the same salary. One spends freely, racks up credit card debt, and saves nothing. The other follows Cuban's rules, lives frugally, pays off all debt, builds savings, and learns new skills. Fast forward to age 30. The first person is stuck in the same job, stressed about bills, and has little to show for a decade of work. The second person has a solid bank account, no debt, multiple income streams, and is prepared to seize new opportunities. That is the difference Cuban is talking about. Cuban also stresses one more vital point: avoid toxic people. He says that in business and in life, the people you surround yourself with determine your future. If you spend time with people who complain, blame, or waste money, you will eventually adopt their habits. But if you surround yourself with people who are disciplined, ambitious, and financially smart, their influence will raise your standards. As we look at his advice, one final observation stands out. Mark Cuban never says getting rich in your 20s is guaranteed. What he does say is that building the foundation for wealth is absolutely possible if you play the long game. The habits you create in your 20s either lock you into financial struggle or open the door to financial freedom. So does it work? Yes, but only if you take it seriously. Cuban's rules are not magic. They are frameworks for decision making. The real secret is not the advice itself, but the consistency with which you apply it. If you are in your 20s right now, the opportunity is in front of you. Live below your means, eliminate debt, build savings, invest in yourself, and prepare for opportunities. 10 years from now, you will either be grateful you listened or regretful that you ignored it. The choice is yours.